When the last of the television crews packed up and drove away from Turtle Island, the cameras stopped rolling, but the wilderness kept watching. For years, Eustace Conway had been the symbol of pure freedom, a man who turned his back on modern comfort to live by the rhythm of the earth. He was the face of self-reliance, the man who proved civilization wasn't necessary for survival. But what people didn't know was that something in those mountains had been watching him long before the cameras ever arrived. When Eustace suddenly withdrew from the public eye, his family told reporters he needed time to rest, time to heal, time away from the noise. But behind those careful words was something darker. His sister Martha later admitted that Eustace had changed in his final years. He stopped answering calls. He stopped writing letters. And when he did write, his handwriting trembled, like he was trying to control his own fear. Months after his retreat, his nephew Daniel decided to check on him. He knew the trails to Turtle Island well, or at least he thought he did. But that day, the forest felt different. He said the air was thick, like it remembered something. The wind didn't whistle, and it whispered. And there was a strange quiet between the trees, the kind of silence that makes even birds second-guess their flight. When Daniel arrived, he found the main cabin empty. Tools were still on the table, food half-eaten, a kettle still rusted black from the last fire. It looked like Eustace had simply stood up and walked away. As Daniel explored the property, he noticed a narrow trail he didn't recognize. It twisted down behind the old horse corral, swallowed by vines and moss. Curiosity, or maybe instinct, made him follow it. Half a mile in, he found a small hidden cabin. Its windows were boarded shut, its door bound tightly with rope. And burned into the wood above the frame was a spiral, a symbol his uncle had carved into dozens of his totems over the years. He untied the rope and stepped inside. The smell hit first, a mix of cedar, dust, and something faintly metallic. Inside, the room was lined from floor to ceiling with journals, hundreds of them, each marked by date, weather, and strange sketches of animals, stars, and shapes that didn't quite belong to either. But one volume stood out. It was darker, older, and its pages stuck together like something wet had dried there. On the cover, written in uneven handwriting, were the words, "Do not burn the fire after midnight." Daniel began reading. At first, it was all typical Eustace. Notes on deer tracks, frost patterns, rainfall. But then the tone shifted. His words became short, urgent. His sketches, strange. He described hearing deep rhythmic knocks echoing from the far ridge. 3 knocks, always 3. He wrote about feeling watched, about finding footprints. Large, human-like, but heavier. He measured 1, 17 inches long. And the phrase repeated over and over again. They come when the fire dies. Daniel turned the page and then froze. A sketch stared back at him. A tall, hulking silhouette between the trees, eyes marked with faint silver strokes towering over a small cabin. Next to it, his uncle had written only one line. "It's not an animal, it's the mountain's memory." He kept reading. The entries grew frantic and words scratched, lines smudged. Eustace wrote about nights without wind, about the forest breathing heavy like a living lung. He said he'd started leaving offerings, fruit, wood carvings, bits of food, by a large oak at the far edge of the preserve. And in return, the voices stopped for a while. Then came the final entry in that journal. "She was closer last night. I saw her in the clearing. The ground shook when she breathed. I think she's warning me. Not all watchers are kind." Daniel set the book down. He stepped outside to get air, but the forest felt heavier now. The silence sharper. That's when he heard it, faint, deep, and deliberate. 3 knocks far off in the trees. 1, 2, 3. He said it didn't sound like wood. It sounded like something inside the ground was answering back. When he returned home, Daniel didn't tell anyone at first. But the memory stayed. Those knocks, that strange vibration in the soil. Until finally he told his mother, Eustace's sister. She demanded to see the journals. When she did, she wept. She said she'd read Eustace's handwriting her whole life, but this was different. It looked like he was writing fast, under pressure, like he knew time was running out. A few days later, they returned to the preserve to find the rest of the journals. But when they reached the hidden cabin, it was gone. The spot where it stood was nothing but a clearing of flattened grass and broken roots, as if something had lifted it whole and carried it into the trees. That night, while driving back down the dirt road, Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror. He swore he saw a figure standing at the edge of the tree line, tall, still, watching the road vanish into the dark. He didn't stop the truck, he didn't look twice. But the next morning, when they checked the back of the pickup, there was mud on the tailgate and 3 fingerprints, each twice the width of his own. When Daniel showed his mother the mud-smeared fingerprints on the truck, she didn't speak for a long time. Then she whispered, "That's the same mud that covered his boots the last time he came home." They took the journals to Boone, hoping to find someone who could interpret what Eustace had written. A professor at the university agreed to read them, and she hired an anthropologist who specialized in Appalachian folklore. He expected stories of isolation and superstition. Instead, he found precise coordinates, geological sketches, and references to local Cherokee legends that spoke of a watcher of the ridge, a protector that punished those who took from the mountain without offering back. When he read the line, "It's not an animal, it's the mountain's memory," he told them something that neither Daniel nor his mother ever forgot. To the Cherokee, memory doesn't belong to people. It belongs to the land. Every tree, every river remembers what passes through it. Maybe your brother found something that remembered him. That night, Daniel dreamt of his uncle standing in the rain, lantern flickering, the spiral carved into the ground beneath his feet. In the distance, something tall moved between the trees. Slow, deliberate, almost patient. A week later, Daniel returned to Turtle Island with a small team. 2 friends, both forest workers, and a wildlife biologist who wanted samples of the hair strands they'd found inside the old cabin. They set up trail cameras along the ridge, placed sound recorders near the creek, and camped by the ruins of the cabin site. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then, just after midnight on the 3rd, the forest began to change. The crickets stopped first. Then the wind, even the water in the stream seemed to hesitate, its flow turning shallow, soundless. From somewhere deep in the dark, a low hum rolled through the trees, not mechanical, not animal, something that vibrated in their bones more than their ears. Then again, 3 knocks. Farther this time, but heavier. 1, 2, 3. The biologist grabbed the recorder. The microphone light flickered once and died. Every battery in their camp went flat in the span of seconds. Phones, lanterns, cameras. Only the small flame of their campfire remained. Daniel said the air itself felt alive, thick, pulsing, like the ground beneath them had a heartbeat. When the wind finally returned, it carried a smell none of them recognized, and wet soil, pine, and something musky, like fur left in the rain. The biologist froze. He was staring at the tree line, eyes wide. Daniel followed his gaze. Something massive stood there, half hidden, motionless, the outline barely human, the shoulders impossibly wide. It didn't move toward them. It just breathed, each exhale a slow cloud in the cold. When Daniel blinked, it was gone. In the morning, they found the ground around the camp churned and packed down. The tracks weren't clear, just impressions, but spaced too far apart for any man to have walked them. On the tree where they'd seen the shape, 3 deep scratches ran parallel down the bark, as if made by a hand too large to belong here. The biologist left the preserve that afternoon. He refused to talk about what he saw. Weeks later, his report mentioned only unverified auditory phenomena and possible hoax activity. But Daniel knew better. When he returned alone a month later, the forest was different again. He said the air hummed softly, the way it does before a storm. At the base of the same oak where his uncle used to leave offerings, he found a small wooden carving, fresh, detailed, still damp from rain. It was a figure of a man, standing before a towering shape with hollow eyes. He looked closer and noticed something carved into the bottom in faint letters. For balance, the handwriting was unmistakable. It was his uncle's, dated 3 weeks after Eustace was declared missing. Daniel fell to his knees. He said it felt like the woods were breathing around him, slow and deep, as if the mountain itself was exhaling. And in that breath, he swore he heard words, a low, broken whisper carried through the leaves. "Listen, when the fire dies." He ran. He didn't stop until the truck engine drowned out the trees. Later, when he told his mother, she didn't ask questions. She just said, "He's still there." But maybe not as we knew him. Since that night, locals have reported strange lights moving along the ridge, slow and deliberate, like lanterns carried by something walking upright. And every few months, someone camping near Turtle Island reports the same sound. 3 heavy knocks echoing through the valley. No one goes looking anymore. They say whatever lives there isn't hunting, it's remembering. And sometimes, when the night turns perfectly still, the mountain seems to breathe just once, as if it's alive. After Daniel's last visit to Turtle Island, something in him shifted. He stopped going into the woods altogether. The man who'd once grown up among trees and creeks now couldn't stand the sound of wind through pine. His mother said he'd wake at night shaking, whispering the same 3 words over and over. She's still listening. Months passed. The family stayed silent, the journals locked away in a cedar chest. Hidden in Martha's basement, they told no one. But in the quiet hours before dawn, Martha swore she sometimes heard knocks, faint, distant, as if someone was tapping gently beneath the floorboards. Then one winter morning a letter arrived. No return address, no name, just a single line written across yellowing paper. He kept the promise. The balance holds. Inside the envelope was a small wooden carving, the same spiral symbol, carved with the same knife marks her brother used. When she held it to her ear, she could swear she heard the soft hum of wind, like the sound of breathing through trees. That was when Martha decided to break her silence. If she and Daniel didn't speak now, the truth, or whatever was left of it, would die with them. So she invited a small independent journalist team from Asheville, ones who had been researching unexplained phenomena across the Appalachian wilderness. She handed them the journals, all 23 of them, and told them everything. The journalists verified what they could. Dates, weather records, coordinates, all accurate. Some entries even predicted natural events that happened days later, like storms and animal migrations. But the strangest part wasn't the accuracy. It was the way Eustace's words seemed to listen back. Each time one of them read the journals aloud, the recordings would distort. Not glitch, distort, as if something deep and low was vibrating beneath their voices. They tried to upload the audio to a computer, but the file corrupted every time. Only the text survived, and one image captured from a trail camera they'd recovered near the ridge. The photo showed a tall, blurred figure stepping between 2 trees, its outline human, but wrong in scale. Behind it, faintly, the reflection of a lantern. No one was there when the photo was taken. After the journalists published their findings, the online world went into chaos. Skeptics claimed hoax, calling it a desperate grab for attention. But the locals, they didn't argue. They said Eustace had always respected the land more than anyone. If he vanished, maybe it wasn't tragedy, maybe it was invitation. For years after, strange things continued to happen near the Blue Ridge. Rangers found newly carved totems standing along the trails, wood polished smooth by rain, each marked with the same spiral. When they tried to remove them, the totems returned the next morning in the same spots. People camping nearby reported whispers in the wind, words they couldn't understand but somehow felt meant for them. Daniel never went back to the mountain, but in one of his last interviews, his voice shaking, he said something that stayed with those who heard it. "I don't think he's gone. I think he became part of it. The mountain isn't dead land. It's alive, and it remembers those who listen." Martha kept the journals until her final days. She said reading them was like standing on the edge of 2 worlds, one human, one older. When she died, her will instructed that the journals be returned to the ridge where they were found, and that's exactly what Daniel did. At dawn, he hiked back alone, the air still, the world pale with fog. He carried the wooden box up to the highest ridge, where the first light hit the treetops. He placed the journals on the ground, whispered a prayer, and stepped back. The wind rose softly, turning the fog into a swirling gray veil. Then deep within the forest came that sound again, 3 heavy knocks. Slow, deliberate, echoing through the valley. Daniel said he felt the ground shift beneath him, not violently, but gently, as if something vast and buried had just taken a deep breath. And when the fog lifted, the box was gone. In its place lay a small carving, freshly made, still warm from touch. It was a man holding a lantern, standing beside a massive, shadowed figure. The same spiral marked the base. He didn't take it home. He left it there on the moss under the rising sun. As he walked away, he said the forest felt different, lighter somehow, as though something that had been watching finally turned its gaze elsewhere. To this day, locals say that on cold nights, when the fire burns low, you can still hear faint knocking rolling down the ridges. 3 beats, steady as a heartbeat. Some say it's wind, others say it's memory. But those who knew Eustace believe it's something older, something that doesn't live in the forest, but is the forest. And when the fire dies, they say the mountain breathes his name.